Good morning, everybody. My name is Justin Wilson. I use he, him pronouns, and as the Congregational Life Coordinator, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this service at the First Universalist Church of Rochester. If you are here for the first or maybe second time this morning, we especially welcome you and thank you for making it to our worshiping community. We invite you and everyone to remain after the service for coffee hour in the Clara Barton Lounge, which is behind us through either of these doors, or online in the same Zoom link. There's also a visitor's form on the back of your order of service. We encourage you to fill that out so that you can stay up to date as to what's happening here, and we can offer you a welcome beyond what we can this morning. There's also a link in the chat for those online. We are not going to do our traditional joys and sorrows today. We'll share any that are already written next week. We'll also offer that at the end of the service if you want to pre-write any of those. In our online community, you're always welcome to share with each other online, but we will share with everybody next week. Some announcements today. There is a lot going on in these last couple weeks of March. Today, after service in room 21, we are having an art event. You can see where we're at with the room as we're making renovations, make some art, and learn how you can shape the room's future. So kids and kids at heart are welcome. We also have the Preaching is Storytelling workshop with Reverend Eileen, the Ripples of Plastic screening, lots going on. Next week, we have the book club, and there's lots of events in between, so make sure to check out the announcement section in your order of service. Before we turn to each other and say hello, let's say hello to our online community. Let's wave towards the camera there in the back corner near where the Progress Pride flag is. If you're online, you can pop a greeting into the chat. We're glad you're joining us. And for those of us here in person, let's say hello to our neighbors this morning.
Okay, everybody, I think you've had enough fun. I'm glad you did. But thanks for taking your seats. Somebody's been told our service will be a little short today, so we gotta cut it off. Okay, I'm Trish Gallagher. Most of you know me. I call this little story Truth by Piano. A house isn't a home without a piano is a principle my mother lived by. She didn't actually play the piano, but she made sure her house had a piano on hand for those who did. She also made sure I took piano lessons. When I was 5, my minister dad got a new church, and we promptly snatched up the older piano from the church basement. Unfortunately, that piano had 3 notes permanently out of tune. I think it's lack of money. I peeked inside the tall upright and found one note had only 2 of the 3 necessary strings. Another had 2 of the 3 strings oddly twisted. Unfortunately, those 2 notes were regularly used in practically every piece I attempted. Surely this piano's music would always sound ungodly. Was I proven wrong? One afternoon, Dad brought a black minister friend and his family to visit us in our small town, which noticeably had not a single minority resident. This was my first up-close and personal exposure to people of color. One of the young daughters, maybe 13 or so, played complex music on our partially tuned piano so well that I didn't notice any bad notes. I was blown away. My 3rd grade self concluded the obvious: black girls are amazing musicians. Truth by piano. Inspired by that girl's prowess, I plunged ahead. But sometimes my older brother, who was by definition perfect as the firstborn son, would come out of nowhere to pound my left shoulder hard as I practiced. Pow, pow, pow. I would immediately complain to Mom, and she would just as promptly conclude I was lying. After all, my big brother was perfect. Roughly half a century later, my guilt-ridden big brother confessed to Mom that he really had pounded my shoulder, for no good reason. Mom and my brother both apologized to me. The truth had finally come out. My brother was not perfect. I was not a liar. Truth by piano. Now, I never played well. I moved on to play the string bass in the school band where my lack of actual talent was not so obvious. But I still believed in pianos. When I was in my 30s, married with 2 stepchildren and a new house, I promptly, you guessed it, got a piano. We put it in our carefully decorated entryway and made my stepdaughter take lessons. Like mother, like stepdaughter. She soon switched to the flute, and the piano sat unused, except to prove our house was indeed a home. Thank goodness. Just before Christmas one year, the doorbell rang. Ominously, at the door were 2 social services caseworkers investigating a phoned-in report that my husband had physically abused his young daughter, my stepdaughter. It was one of those mid-custody battle, meritless complaints, and fortunately, was immediately recognized as such. Oh, it's one of those, huffed one of the caseworkers, eyeing our piano. Obviously, we were people of good character. We had a piano. Still, my husband was crushed. I went into action, making phone calls to school and church people who knew my husband and his daughter. By the end of that day, Christmas Eve, the case was administratively dismissed. Phew, Christmas was saved. Truth by piano. Many of you know the hit TV series MASH and may remember its pompous Bostonian Dr. Charles, who worshipped classical music. He once wisely admitted, "I can play the notes, but I can't make the music." That fictional doctor was a lot like me, probably like many of us, no real musical talent. One of the reasons I love coming to this church is so many people here can and do make the music. And UUs have long been good stewards of that musical capability by maintaining our rare Hope Jones organ via special fundraising campaigns, by obtaining for free the use of an Eastman School Steinway grand piano, thank you, Howard, by hiring superbly talented directors of music like Brock, and of course, by keeping Ann Rohde. Piano, organ, flute, strings, voice, and even kazoo. Members and friends of this church make wonderful music. Come, let us worship together and support our church together. Now, rise in body and spirit if you can to sing hymn number 194, Faith is a Forest.
I'm Reverend Eileen, she, her, and maybe you've already noticed, this service is a little bit unusual today. And Emmerich, you are right. Now it is time for a story. If you'd like to listen to the story right up close, you can come up and listen to only the first of a couple stories. This is our opening story this morning, and today's service, like I said, is a little weird. We're doing a ritual and some storytelling to honor the beginning of spring, because did you know that spring is beginning? Yes, and another weird thing about our service today is that it is the beginning of our stewardship campaign, but we're going to talk about that later, because right now, it's time for a story about spring. This is a folk tale that comes from Scandinavia, some countries far in the north of Europe. And it goes like this. Long ago, in the far, far, far north, there was a long winter. The people were waiting for spring to come, but she did not. Not in March, not in April, not in May, and even in June, there was still no spring. The mountain tops were covered with ice. The children bundled up in parkas when they went out every morning, and the elders shivered in their beds all night. The rivers were frozen solid, and the ground was hard and lifeless. And a rumor spread across the land that the old giant, Old Man Winter, had kidnapped spring and was keeping her prisoner in his palace of ice. Only a few were brave enough to go and try to free her, but none of them returned. And all the villages were filled with a deep despair. Spring will never come, they thought. Has anybody else ever felt that way? Me too. But a small boy in this story, no older than 9 years old, found a little kernel of courage inside of him, a tiny seed of courage, and he said, I will go. And he did. He started the long trek to Old Man Winter's palace of ice. He walked across frozen lakes and through valleys filled with snow up to his armpits. He walked through bitter cold and dark, and finally he came to the sheer ice face of the mountain where the castle sat. And it was there that he stood exhausted and exhilarated when he was captured by two of Old Man Winter's guards. They carried him underneath the mountain itself and threw him in a dungeon cell. The boy was so tired and so defeated that he fell asleep. In the morning when he awoke, he felt different. He found he had giant paws where his hands should be, and whiskers on his face, and a long, swishing tail, and big, sharp teeth in his mouth. He had turned into a large beast. And inside, he felt different too. He felt angry and hungry and desperate. He looked around the dungeon cell, and he saw it was filled with other creatures, some large like him, but most small. And in the corner, he saw a very small rabbit-like creature, and suddenly he felt especially hungry. He chased the rabbity thing around and around the cell until finally he pinned it down with one enormous paw. He opened his jaws to bite the creature. But just before he did, he remembered somewhere inside who he was. I'm sorry, he said, lifting his paw away. I don't want to hurt you. It's okay, the small creature said. I was a person once too. Winter makes beasts of us all. Right? We have been trying to free spring, she went on. We're digging a tunnel to her cell, but it's taking us ages. Well, I bet my large paws could dig pretty fast, the boy thought. And they did. They dug and they dug together, all of the creatures who were people once. And at last they burst through into Spring's chamber where she was sleeping deeply. The creatures woke her up, and her own magic began to work on them at once. They returned to their human forms. All the people who had found the seed of courage in them to go and set her free became themselves again. And together they broke down the door of her cell and they walked out. An old man, Winter, let out a great cry of rage from his throne when he saw them crossing the palace courtyard, but Spring said, "Do not worry about him. He cannot stop Spring once it has woken up." And she was right. They walked home all across the land, a trail of flowers popping up from underneath Spring's feet wherever she stepped. And the ice melted and the earth thawed, the rivers flowed, and everywhere the land turned green with growth again. And I think this is why we come to church, isn't it? To remember, even when it feels like all hope is lost and only despair is left, that morning always comes after night. Spring always comes after winter. And the world we dream of will arrive one day too, if we find that little seed of hope and courage inside of us. So my friends, come let us worship together. And now it's time to light our chalice. You can go back to your seats or the wiggle zone unless you are our chalice lighter.
Okay, as Rory and you and Casey-Campbell are here to light our chalice at First Universalist Church, and you light a chalice in your own home, please join me in our chalice lighting words spoken in unison. Sorry. May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart and mind and spirit, and may we reach out to serve our community. Please rise in body or spirit for our affirmation of faith. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity and fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life, thus to be covenant with each other and with all. I invite you now into the spiritual practice of generosity. The good work of this church is funded by the gifts you give. Part of that good work is the ministry of the Finance Committee. This committee oversees the management of church finances, fundraisers, and helps run the annual pledge campaign. They make sure we are thoughtfully stewarding the resources we share. Would any members of the Finance Committee present raise your hands here and online? Thank you. We are so grateful for your contributions to the life of this church and the needs of the world. Let us give with grateful hearts this morning. Please place your offering in the offering basket or give online by scanning the QR code on the back of your order of service. This is also a great time to place visitors' forms in the offering basket. For folks online, please click the link in the chat to give to the First Universalist Church. Thank you for your generosity. This morning's offering will now be gratefully received.
Well, guess what? It's time for another story. If you'd like to listen to this story up close, you're going to have so many opportunities to come up close this morning, I'm telling you. If you'd like to listen to this story up close, if you're a big person or a small person or any person in between, you are invited to come up during the story or any time you need to. You can move your body how you feel you need to. Reverend Michelle and I have a story for you this morning that comes, I'm going to introduce, well, Reverend Michelle pulls up her version of it and turns on her microphone, that it comes from Greek mythology. It is another story about winter and spring, and this is the story of Demeter and Persephone. Maybe some of us have heard it before, but in church we like to tell old stories over and over.
Because we get to look at them in new and different ways. So if you've ever heard of Demeter, who is the goddess of green growing things and the harvest, and so she was in charge of making all the plants grow. So if you wanted your plants to grow, you might be like, hey, Demeter, help a brother out. All right. And she had a daughter named Persephone. And Persephone just loved playing in all the fun growing things that her mom made. And so they lived in an endless summertime and blooming season and just enjoyed every moment.
Meanwhile, you may have heard of the god called Hades, who was the god of what? Do we know? The underworld, or sometimes we call him the god of death. He kept the underworld, the world underneath this earth, where in this mythology all of the dead went to live after they died. And Hades spent his days down there overseeing the land of the dead, the underworld, but he was lonely. And he thought to himself, maybe I should find a wife. And so he started looking at the upper world, the world of the living, and he noticed Persephone playing among all the beautiful growing living things, and he thought, well, she looks nice. And Hades opened up a chasm in the earth and pulled Persephone into it down to the underworld to live with him. And here's where we pause the story for a moment to say, I think you already know that this is not how one goes about finding a wife, right? And it's silly, and we can laugh about it because we know that this is not how you find a friend or a wife or any kind of companion, by opening up a chasm and swallowing them into the earth or taking them against their will. But remember who Hades was, right? He exists in these stories as a personification of death. So this is not how marriage works or how love works, but it sometimes is how death feels, like a hole just opened up in the earth and took away the person you loved, right? And that is probably how Demeter felt.
Exactly. Well, Demeter felt that way above, but first, in the underworld, even Persephone was so sad, missing her mother. She longed for her mother. She felt alone. Everything was dark. She didn't know where she was. She didn't know anyone. She was scared, and she refused to eat. She wouldn't eat anything. She wouldn't take anything that was offered to her. And Hades tried to make her happy and win her over with all of the good things that he could find in the underworld. So shiny gems and gemstones, glittering caves and geodes and gold and silver. But nothing could replace being near her mom.
And her mom was so sad. Demeter longed for her daughter to come back, but she had no hope that it might actually happen because people didn't generally come back from the dead. That was true then in those stories as it is now. And so Demeter just got lost in her despair. She stopped making green things grow, and the earth turned brown and dead and cold. And there was no harvest. The crops failed, and without green things with roots holding the soil, the earth dried out and washed away. People were hungry, the animals were hungry, and the world started to look the way Demeter felt inside, empty and sad and hardly alive herself.
And Zeus, the king of the gods, noticed what was going on. Not only did he feel bad that Demeter was so sad, but was a little scared for the world and all of its people, because if things were not growing, then how was everything to stay alive? If plants aren't alive, no one has anything to eat. And soon all the people and everything else would die. So Zeus talked to Hermes, who's like the messenger of the gods. And he said, you got to go talk to Hades. We got to fix this. Something's got to be done. And so after talking, Hades agreed to let Persephone go. But he wanted to try to give her one last gift. He gave her a pomegranate, which is a kind of fruit. And you can see them in the stores this time of year. You open them up, and there's all these little pods with a little bit of juice and a seed. Well, of course, Persephone was missing plants and green growing things, and she ate 4 of the little pod seeds.
And so Hermes said, hold on a minute, there are some ancient rules at play here. And those rules include that if you eat something in the underworld, it binds you to the underworld. If you eat and drink down here, you've got to stay down here. And rules are rules. Did you ever meet somebody who was a real rules are rules person? Yeah. Well, that was Hermes in this story, but luckily for everyone, Zeus intervened, and he said, rules are rules-ish. And so she ate 4 seeds, so how about a little compromise? She'll stay in the underworld for 4 months every year. And then the rest of the time, she'll go back with her mother, and they'll be together, and she'll be among all the green and growing living things in the rest of the world. And so the story tells us that every year for 4 months, Persephone goes down to the land of the dead, to the underworld, to spend time with Hades and be among the dead. And during that time, Demeter is sad. She doesn't cause things to grow, and the earth looks like it's dead. The earth looks empty, and it reflects the way Demeter feels inside. But we know that after 4 months, Persephone will return to her mother, and her mother will start the green growth of life on earth again every year, as she celebrates Persephone's return in the spring. And that is the end of our story. And I just have a couple questions for you. This story is something called an etiology. Does anybody know what that is? You do? What is it? Yeah, it is. It's a story that tells why something happens, how things came to be this way. So this is a story told by people who were looking at how the world changed throughout the year and said, well, maybe this is why, and wrote a story about it to explain how things came to be. And lots of folk stories and wisdom tales are etiologies, just like this one. My other question is, I wonder if you have ever felt like Demeter, like you worried that spring, that thing you waited for and longed for, might just never come back. Anybody ever feel that way? Yeah. And I also wonder, one last question. Has anyone seen any signs of spring this year? What signs of spring? Emmerich, what have you seen? Some flowers are growing already. Ewan, what have you seen? There's green leaves in our garden growing. They're the very tops of tulips. Rory, what have you seen? What sign of spring? The maple trees are budding a little early. The robins are back, Kitty has seen. Anybody else seen a sign of spring? The lilacs are starting to bud. Michael. There's an early forsythia bush. What have you seen, Peggy? Hearing geese. Me too. They're coming home. Or at least we call it home. Theo, what have you seen? Birds singing. Yeah, and Trish. people returning from Florida. We love it. Yeah, and one more sign of spring. The sunrise is earlier. There's more light in the day. And we're going to sing our doxology now. But I want to invite you, if you'd like to be the first in our seed planting ritual, you can stay right here for the doxology. And then you'll be first in the next thing that we do, if you'd like to be. And we have a helper for that ritual too. So I would invite you to stay wherever you are, but rise in body or in spirit as we sing a doxology together. This morning we have a special ritual to honor the beginning of spring and our hope in the faithfulness of the earth. And I believe Charlotte's going to help us with our special ritual this morning. So Charlotte's our helper. We find sometimes that, like the little boy who helped rescue spring, like how Demeter felt when Persephone was away, it can feel like spring will never return, right? Like even when the calendar says it should be spring, and surely she should have been here by now, maybe we will be trudging through icy fields forever. And it can be easy to feel like Demeter did when the earth looks dead and gray and the days are cold and dark, as if despair is the only thing left to feel. Like this is a time that might never end. And sometimes, even, it can feel like all that we've planted for the world, all that we dream of, the world of peace and justice and love that we imagine, might never start to grow, right? It's not just me, right? But we come to church to plant in one another just a little bit of hope. And a tiny seed is all it takes. So this morning, we participate in a ritual of hope together. In a moment, we'll invite you to come forward and touch the earth in the form of dirt on our altar and plant an actual seed along with your hopes for the future. If you would like a helper to bring some dirt and a seed to you, you can raise a hand and Charlotte will help. If you would like a helper to pick up a little tiny seed who has small, strong fingers, we've got helpers for that. If you're joining us online, I want to invite you to drop a heart in the chat rather than a seed in the soil. So let us take a moment now to breathe deeply and reflect on what hope we would like to plant, to nourish, and to care for. What hopes we know someday will grow. I invite you to turn inward and reflect on that now. And then please come forward as you feel called to let your hopes and your seeds be planted. Okay. I invite you now into a time of prayer and centering, followed by some shared silence. So let's take a deep breath and let it out with a sigh. Perhaps your shoulders fall away from your ears, your feet find the floor, and you feel held by this good earth, by this good church. Let us breathe deep and be held by that spirit of life, that great creative unfolding of the universe, the cosmic longing that sailed across the skies as stardust, emerged as microbial life in the ancient seas, formed the bodies of the first flowers, inviting the desires of birds and bees and all manner of small, hungry ancestors. The hungry love that eventually hungered for you, for us, right here in this moment. Let us be still and be held by that spirit of life that longed for our existence. Let us be still and know that we live and love as the hopes of 1,000,000 billion ancestors. Your very own heart beats with the dreams of a universe that continues to unfurl itself in you. Let us be still and breathe here in this great love that holds all our hopes, in this great love that hoped for us. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. Our hymn of contemplation this morning is number 403 in the gray hymnal, Spirit of Truth, of Life, of Power. Or a reflection, not a story. But if you'd like to come forward and help me out or listen a little more closely, you are invited to do so now or any time during the reflection. And believe it or not, this isn't the last time you'll be able to come forward and sit up at the front. Now, I am so grateful for all of you who helped me notice and remember the signs of spring that we are all seeing as spring begins. I'm someone who has a hard time believing that spring will ever really show up after our very long Rochester winters. And maybe you've noticed, or you've known me for a while, that I have a lot of tattoos on my body. A fair number, anyway. There are certainly people with more. And one of them, which I'll have to show you when it's actually short sleeve weather, because it's over the back of my shoulder. The first one I ever got is of a magnolia branch dripping with open and partially open flowers, which I got to remind myself that every year, just about the time I think it's going to be cold forever, the magnolias start to open. The little buds turn into bigger and bigger flowers, and then our whole street and many of the streets in our beautiful city are drenched with magnolia scent and open blossoms of pink and white flowers. And then those petals fall and they coat the streets like a fairy had been there or something. And I sometimes need a little reminder that that will come when I start to think everything I long for is too far away to ever be real. Do you ever have that feeling? I probably have that feeling too often. I want to tell you a story about having that feeling with my friend Petra. And maybe you know Petra Page Mann from Fruition Seeds because of her work in the community, or maybe you remember when she preached here in November, just a few months ago. But I was sitting with Petra once on her farm in Naples on a beautiful sunny day, and I was feeling a little bit of despair, which seems rude of me to do on a beautiful sunny day sitting on a farm in Naples. But we were talking about foraging, about finding food in the wild. And I started talking about butternut trees. Does anybody know what a butternut tree is? Rory, you know. You're just like, yes, I do know what that is. It's a North American species of walnut that used to be everywhere across the Northeast. You could see butternuts everywhere you went. And when I was a child, we spent a lot of the late summer and early fall harvesting butternuts to bring home, which taste like walnuts but a little less bitter and, as the name implies, very buttery. And the butternut population in North America has suffered a fungal blight over the last 20 or 25 years, and more than 80% of butternuts have been killed by this fungus. So it's very hard to find a butternut anymore. And I was saying to Petra on that day, I've been looking for one local butternut tree for years, and I can't find one anywhere. And I'm starting to think I might never have butternuts again. And then Petra made a little room for my grief because she's a good friend like that. And then she said, let me tell you a story. I have, she said, this Mennonite friend. They're a whole family of friends, and they work with us on some of our farming practices, and we share seeds back and forth and saplings of trees because they're mostly tree farming on their farm. And we went there to learn some techniques from them that you don't tend to find at the Cornell Co-op. And you will never believe what they have on their farm. She said for 20 years, the same amount of time the butternuts have been dying, they've been cultivating a cold, short-season almond tree. And they have almond trees in this region, in the Finger Lakes, that bear bushels of fruit every year. Bushels of almonds in upstate New York. Can you believe it? And I could hardly believe it. But I do trust Petra, so I do believe it. She said there is always a reason to despair, and always 1,000 more reasons to hope. And she is both a good friend and usually right. I wonder this morning if there's something that you hope for that seems unlikely or even seems impossible. Is there something you're hoping for that seems impossible? Yeah, Ewan? A thunderstorm. That seems almost possible today, I think. Yeah, keep hoping. You might get it. Emmerich, what are you hoping for that seems unlikely? I could plant a butternut tree. It is something I have thought about. If I had a place where a butternut could grow, I probably would, because there are people who have saved seeds from trees that seem to be resistant to that fungus. And I love the way your hope is thinking, Emmerich. Does anybody else have something they are hoping for that seems almost impossible? Like it might never come true. Charlotte, what are you hoping for? Having a cat when your mom's allergic. Yes. It's such an unlikely hope to hold. Willow, are you hoping for something that seems impossible? What is it? A safe world. It does feel unlikely some days to hope for. Catherine, what are you hoping for? Sleeping through the night. Sometimes it feels impossible, doesn't it? Trish, what are you hoping for? For the president to be a Unitarian Universalist. It does feel impossible, but we're here for you. Ewan, do you have another thing you're hoping for? What is it? For summer. And strawberries. I'm with you. And watermelon. So many hopes. We can imagine the world we long for. Right? A world that is safe, where everyone gets to sleep through the night and have strawberries But we are living in an in-between time, aren't we? In between the world as it is and the world we're dreaming of. It's important, I think, to share our hopes with one another. Because here's the thing about hope. Sometimes, like Demeter found, sorrow looms so large that it convinces us it's the whole story. That our sorrow, our grief, our despair is the whole thing, beginning, middle, and end, right? It tells us that the whole story of our life, of the world, is tragedy, and that's that. But we just need to know, in order to hope, that there's a little bit more story left. Right? We don't need to know what the end of the story is or to see the whole story laid out before us, just to know there's another chapter, a few more pages, just another breath. That there's enough room for some unexpected miracle, right? We don't have to see the whole forest to find a reason to hope, just the tiny shoots of life poking up through whatever decay the winter has left behind. And all that hope needs is for us to believe there's a little more story left to tell, that the sun will rise in the morning, that the spring will come once again. May it be so, and amen. And would you rise in body or in spirit and sing together our closing hymn, number 44, We Sing of Golden Mornings. Extinguishes our chalice flame this morning, and let us read together the words printed on the screen as she does. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts, with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in, until we are together. And as we close our service this morning, I invite you to place a hand over your heart. If you're joining us online, I invite you to turn your settings to gallery view and look upon the faces of those gathered with you. And for those of us here in the room, let us take a moment to look around at everyone here today. And I offer as a benediction these words from Rachel Carson from Silent Spring. Those who contemplate the beauty of the earth find reserves of strength that will endure as long as life lasts. There is something infinitely healing in the repeated refrains of nature, the assurance that dawn comes after night and spring after winter. Everyone is invited to join us for coffee hour after the service, but not immediately after the service. If you remember Justin's announcement, we're going to take 5 minutes to talk about stewardship with all ages. We got
Should have been part of the lesson plan. But I've been retired a while. Would you like the children to come up and be ready for so any of our young friends who want to come up, I'm going to teach this song to everybody, and then Reverend Eileen is going to come back and talk about stewardship. This is about seeds and other things that we help grow at church. So let me make sure I'm in the right key, and we'll do the whole song after I teach it. So the first verse is about take the seed that you have. If you want to do some motions, you can do that. And plant it here. What do seeds need to grow? Water. Give it water and time for a day or a year. I hope these don't take a year. Let's hope for a day, a couple days, more than a year. And the last thing we have to give everything, our plants, each other, this church, is love. So we start with take the seed that you have and plant it here, give it water and time for a day or a year. Take the seed that you have and plant it here, give it love and give it love. And you are welcome to sing any or all of this. The second verse talks about take the song that you have and sing it here, and that's honoring our choir and all of the people who make music here. And for all of us leading into stewardship, take the dream that you have and plant it here and give it strength and love for a day or hopefully many years. I'll start that song, and you're going to have to sing loud because I can't hold the microphone while I'm singing. So.